I think what is important is in tinnitus research is that we have a better understanding of the different stages of tinnitus. At this point, mainly we're looking at chronic tinnitus, but we're a little bit clueless why some people develop hearing loss and not have tinnitus, and other people have hearing loss and develop tinnitus. So if we really can understand at an acute stage, oh, I have tinnitus, what is the risk that this tinnitus will become chronic? That will really help us to then develop better treatments and also intervene at an earlier stage. In addition to that, understanding the different stages from no tinnitus, acute tinnitus, and chronic tinnitus, if we really understand that, that could also help to develop prevention methods. Because at this point, we're really focusing on trying to find a cure. But if we can prevent it, that would help a lot more people than if we would have to wait until we find a cure for tinnitus.
I'm interested in being able to measure on more an individual basis how someone responds to certain treatments. So I think we need to probably think about individualizing them, working out how certain cures work for certain people and not for others. We know that there are a lot of successful options for some people, but then others try them and they don't work. So I think trying to get at more an individualized approach is the way that I would think about these things, really.
So I'm working on cochlear implant research, where I do really believe that electrical stimulation of the auditory nerve could actually be one of the treatment for tinnitus for some people, per subpopulation, for instance.
If we're going to get a cure on the nearby horizon, I think it would need to be something that either disrupts the tinnitus source coming from low down in the auditory pathway and breaks up all the connections, a neural synchrony disrupting thing, or something that can teach the brain's memory and recognition systems high up to forget the tinnitus signal. I'm not sure which, if either of those, it would be or quite how it would be done, but I think that's the ballpark we'd be in at the moment.
I believe that all things is about the animal model. So if we will develop the animal model will be common for the field, it will be definitely beneficial to move field forward.
Just from the talks today, possibly if we can bring in more patients from that are not just university students, like ages 18 to 25. That seems to be the main source of the data so far. That's just from me looking in as not a clinician yet.
Well, it's a difficult question, but I've been saying for a while now, and I still kind of hold to this, which is a lot of our work in hearing restoration. So essentially, we're talking about hair cell regrowth.
Maybe this is with one
Neuroscience, and the science behind this is going to actually give us a real chance for a cure, not only for hearing loss, but actually tinnitus itself as well. But that's possibly not necessarily the answer that people were looking for. And I think another thing that would really help move along the science of tinnitus is to come up with a really solid animal model. And if we had that, then we could really move along things like large-scale trials in animals and get interest of pharmaceutical companies in terms of really pushing forward treatments. All that being said, that's not stuff I do at all. And so here I am, not even waving my own flag, because what I'm trying to do is understand the perception of tinnitus and mechanisms, but that might not necessarily be the first, quickest way to get to a cure.
In order to come to a cure for tinnitus, we need many things. First, we need young researchers with new ideas, maybe inspired by other fields, who bring these ideas in the tinnitus field. This can be done with exploratory studies, but at the next step, whenever we see a positive signal, we need a methodological sound, systematic study in order to verify these findings in order to further develop them. In most cases, new ideas fail, but we also can learn from these failures in order to refine the ideas, in order to make it a little bit better. But all this requires enough resources for the tinnitus field, enough people working in the area, and it requires the support of private funding agencies, but also of public funding agencies, because without money and without people, we will never achieve a cure.
So the question is, how can we try to develop treatments in a quick and efficient way? I think for that there is multiple solutions, but ultimately it all boils down to having more funding. Just like with COVID, there was a huge amount of money spent because of the urgency, of course, and that led to a very rapid development of vaccines and other treatments for COVID. Tinnitus has always been underfunded, which means that some people get some funding, other people get some funding, but there is no concerted effort to find a solution. And that's why the treatment approaches are developed slowly. I'll just give a practical example. The definition of tinnitus was only kind of generally accepted in 2021, which is very recent. On top of that, there is no guidelines on how to treat a tinnitus patient. So everybody does what they think they should be doing. And if you're a psychologist, then you propose psychology. If you're an audiologist, you propose hearing aids or acoustic treatments. So what we do need is, apart from having guidelines, we also need to have multidisciplinary approaches where a patient arrives and gets whatever is essential and needed. And then one step further is to combine different treatments so that you can benefit from, for example, medication plus auditory treatment plus psychology plus neuromodulation in one spot, rather than having, as a patient, to go and look on the internet, where can I get this, where can I get that? Now, also that needs to be organized. But on top of that, every treatment currently, based on meta-analytic evidence-based medicine, gives 10% improvement, which is not enough for patients. So we really need some dramatic developments in cancer therapy, for example. These are the biologicals which have immunotherapy has dramatically changed how we treat tumors. We haven't found anything yet in tinnitus that has the same dramatic effects on the tinnitus treatments. And so we should also sponsor high-risk, high-yield research where maybe 8 or 9 out of 10 treatments might fail, but we need this breakthrough. And this will require us to be more brave in developing maybe out-of-the-box ideas rather than just focusing. But in parallel, we have to develop a better theoretical model of how tinnitus is generated in the brain and its relationship with not only the ear, but also, for example, the immune system, because we know it's involved, also with the other senses, because we know the other senses are involved. So we need a more global understanding of the pathophysiology, which will then help to use those multimodal approaches in a rational or mechanism-based way. And so if you put all of that together, ultimately what we need is, on the research front, to be more brave and go to more out-of-the-box thinking, because the rational approach that we've been following up to now hasn't led to any real treatment that is generally accepted. And on the other hand, we have to develop a better knowledge base that can then lead to guidelines so that more clinicians will become interested in helping those patients. It all comes together, but ultimately it boils down to more funding. The good news, however, is that there is now some interest from private philanthropic groups like Tinnitus Quest, as a patient-driven organization, is trying to raise a lot more money to fund these approaches. And these approaches should cover basically what I've been talking about before. So I do have hope that we're on the right track, and that on this very moment, we're just starting by developing a concerted approach rather than everybody working on their own little islands and trying to make a difference.